Hello and welcome to Nador. Today we'll talk about an issue concerning our neighboring country. For the past few days, we have been witnessing extraordinary scenes from Iran, where the death of a young woman in custody has given rise to widespread protests in the country. Mahsa Amini, who was just 22-year-old, was arrested by the country's morality police, and she died in custody. There have been allegations against the authorities. They have been accused of torturing her, and this incident has given rise to a wave of protests, which have spread across the country. So as the protests grow, the Iranian government has responded very violently, and we have been hearing reports that 6 people have been killed during the protest. The government is also trying to block internet in various areas, and there have been reports that the protesters are being dealt violently. So joining me today is Negar Mortazavi, who is an Iranian American author, journalist, and commentator. She writes for independent and various international outlets. So Negar, thank you so much for joining us today. We will
Thank
try
you for
to get
having me.
of what is happening in Iran, the situation there. So my first question to you would be about this kind of defiance that we are witnessing, the unprecedented scenes of women burning their hijab, and they've gone viral on social media. So is this defiance unprecedented? And do you think that these protests are part of a broader wave against of anger against the Iranian regime?
Yes, so the what sparked the protest, as you said, is this young woman, 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, originally from the Kurdish region in Iran, who was visiting Tehran with her family, gets off the metro, as the family says, and is arrested by the morality police and dies while in police custody, and sparked the protests. We see a lot of women, young women, leading these protests at the forefront, burning their scarves, throwing it in fire, cutting their hair as a show of grievance, but also defiance and opposition to this mandatory hijab law that is being violently enforced by the morality police. The morality police has time and again, we've seen images and videos and photos of their violence against women where they try to detain, to arrest. They're essentially part of the bigger police force, and they have the same kind of authority to detain people, to arrest them, to take them to the police station, in the name of guidance, quote unquote guidance police is what they're called, or morality police, and to dictate how people should be dressing or behaving. And people have seen this violence time and again in images, and now it's a time that the violence has essentially, their practice led to this woman's death, or as protesters are calling it, her killing. It's There's been a lot of anger building up over the years against the morality police, and now it's just this collective anger pouring out on the streets. A lot of women see themselves in Masa Amini. The men see their own sisters, their own daughters in Masa Amini. She just seems like a normal young woman that could be anybody being stopped by the morality police. And from the images, the videos that are put out by the state of her in detention, she seems to be dressing quite normally, like just a usual everyday woman with a usual hijab. She's wearing a long robe. She has a headscarf. And one of the key questions is why even religious people are asking what was so wrong with her dress, her outfit, that she was arrested and eventually killed. So there's a lot of anger on the streets. There's also a lot of violence by the security forces, shooting at protesters. We have a number of confirmed deaths of protesters, and it seems like it's adding. I just spoke to somebody in Iran about a woman who seemed to just be a bystander at one of these protests and was shot and killed. And it's just that the atmosphere is very, very angry, and there's a lot of frustration that has been building up, not just for the issue of hijab, but this was the original spark.
Right. Okay. So as you said, the Iranian government has responded violently, and they have not. They're not listening to the grievances of these protesters. So ideally, how should they respond to it? As someone who's been following the Iranian government and how they operate, what do you think should have been the response? These are all young people, young women, progressive forces in the country who are angry. So do you think that they need to be the government needs to sit down and talk to them and listen to the grievances, what, and maybe make some changes? And do you think this would give rise to some kind of improvement in the whole system, where the morality police is allowed to arrest people and mistreat them this way? Do you think that this would change it, or is the government willing to do that? And ideally, what should be their response?
Well, this demand has long been there, and women have been fighting individually against the morality police, which essentially they see as I've seen experienced the morality police when I used to live in Iran as a form of harassment, of public harassment against women in the public space. The way they treat women and how they arrest women is also very subjective. It's not exactly clear how what mandate they go by as far as the appearance, because it's also very diverse the way women dress in different areas and different times and different seasons even. And the demand has long been there to completely abolish the morality police. And now we're hearing even from religious communities in Iran, certain religious people, even some women, hijabi women, who are saying, yes, we are religious and this is our belief, but forcing it on those who don't have this belief violently is just on immoral. They're calling it unimmoral. They're immoral. They're calling it un-Islamic, and essentially saying, don't do this in our name or in the name of our religion and our belief. Because the government, the religious leadership, has been claiming that this is what the majority of Iranians want for years, for decades, and this is how Iranians want to be to dress, and this is what they want to be enforced on others. And now we see even religious Iranians saying, yes, this is what we choose to wear, but we don't support you enforcing in others violently and now lethally. Essentially, it's violence that led to this woman's death. So it's coming from all corners of the Iranian society, and obviously the young people are on the street in many cities and towns across Iran. They're risking their lives as we see protesters are being shot at and killed. So it takes a lot of courage and bravery to take to the streets. And I'm just really hoping that this would be a turning point, a watershed moment, a wake-up call to the authorities of um, about the morality police. And I saw even a member of parliament was speaking up. I saw former government officials even were speaking up on national television. All of this is unprecedented, saying that we are doing something wrong, that it's led to this result, and this is not what should have been expected. And also another argument religious people are making is that you're making young people run away from religion instead of promoting what you consider a value or a virtue. You're just creating backlash, and people are getting further and further away and distant, and in fact anti-religious. So from as this religious scholar put it, from a practical perspective, it's wrong, it's irrational, because it's having the opposite effect. From a legal perspective, it's not even legal, because it's not really stated in Iranian law that this morality police should be the one enforcing hijab and with this kind of lethal violence. And it's also, as these religious people are saying, it's unreligious and immoral and un-Islamic. So I'm really hoping that this would be a wake-up call, and that the kind of change and the demand that protesters and the wider community, also online, many campaigns online that they're asking for, would happen sooner than later.
Right. So about the morality police, as you said, that they really, it's not legal what they do. So if you could tell a little bit about the way they operate. I think they arrest people who are not dressed properly, and then they're also given some kind of training, and they're asked to kind of give they're taught something, and they're kind of basically forced to kind of abide by the code of conduct that the Iranian government has put in place. So how does it work? Like when a person is arrested, is torture the norm? And how exactly do they operate?
So the morality police, or literally as it's called, the guidance police, gasht ershad, is it's part of the bigger police force, and it's tasked with guiding, quote unquote, women and men into behaving and dressing according to the law, which is the mandatory hijab law. But there's been so many discussions over the years, sometimes even within the government and the political structure, of how this mandatory hijab law should be enforced, whether it should be enforced or should it just be a kind of the guidance. And we, as I said, we've seen many images of violence by this morality, but because it's police. So when they start to quote unquote guide women, and these women are refusing to be guided or to conform to the kind of dress code that this police is trying to enforce on them, then it's police, they have the authority to arrest. So they arrest people when there's resistance. They resort to a lot of violence. So we've seen images of women being violently taken, thrown into police vans. They usually gather up women in police vans, and then they take them to the station, to the guidance police station, where they, I guess, have these what they call experts, and they speak to women. They do trainings as what is appropriate and what is not. But it's long hours of detention. It's very humiliating. It's very intrusive, the way they speak to women, the way they treat them, the way they're not free to go. They're essentially under arrest and in detention. And also the arrest, we've seen many images of the arrest being violent and very harsh. So it's not a surprise. Nobody is surprised that this eventually led to somebody's death. A lot of people were saying that this could have even happened much earlier with this kind of violence. When you see people being thrown, sometimes their head hits the van, the side of the car, the sidewalk. So this is not something that has surprised anyone or shocked anyone. And the debate, the national debate really now is that yes, this Islamic dress code shouldn't be forced on people with this type of violence in the name of guidance, quote unquote, but with very clear violence and attacks.
Right. Okay. So, as you said earlier, that there has been a kind of a wave of anger among young people and women. Even those who practice religion are saying that we do not support such enforcement, and we do not support the government who is basically forcing people to behave a certain way or dress a certain way. So, do you think that this is also will this lead to a kind of a movement against the theocracy in Iran overall? And do you think that people are just tired of the theocratic government, an overly religious government, and do they want progressive laws now and progressive policies? Is it something that the protests would maybe lead to?
Well, the protesters are chanting very radical slogans, and it's just been years and years of anger that's building up. Yes, the spark was the death of this woman and the issue of hijab, but the slogans are very radical against the entire political structure and the leadership of the country and the regime, in fact. As far as how much change this can bring, it's hard to say. I don't want to speculate. We have seen many rounds of protests in the past years. The largest since the 1979 revolution happened in 2009. Millions of Iranians were on the street for about a year in many cities. And then we saw large protests in 2019, which was the state cracked down very violently, essentially with an iron fist. Hundreds of protesters were killed, thousands were arrested, very harsh sentences handed to activists and to protesters. And it's difficult. Currently the parliament is controlled by the hardliners. The president is a hardliner conservative himself. This morality police harassment and violence has actually picked up in the past few months, and under the presidency of this new person, it's gotten worse. But at the same time, the society is pushing back. It seems like people are standing on the street, risking their lives, staying and not going anywhere, the younger generation. But their grievances are political, economic, social, cultural, and this is just them asking for a basic right, for their dignity, for women asking for equality. And I'm hoping that it would be a turning point and then a wake-up call, at least when it comes to this violence of the morality police and just in general, the mandatory hijab law. Now there's just so much discussion, even from religious scholars, challenging the whole premise of this mandatory hijab, and essentially arguing that this is something that is a religious belief and it should be a choice for people being free to choose whether they want to wear it or not, and it shouldn't be enforced on people who don't believe that they want to observe it.
Right. Thank you so much, Negar, for helping us understand what is going on in Iran. And you're right, it's truly inspiring the way people are fighting back, especially women. And we have witnessed similar scenes in Afghanistan as well, where women are defying the Taliban and burning their hijab and just trying to go to school and get an education. So it's very inspiring when women fight back and when progressive people fight back against, against repressive governments and repressive regimes. So we hope that better sense prevails in Iran. There's de-escalation and the protests. The government needs to understand that you cannot violently curb a protest movement. You need to listen to the grievances of the people. So that's all for now. Goodbye.